Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. All right, welcome back to the Breakthrough Brand podcast. I'm very excited to share with you a 2021 recap. So I personally love these types of episodes, and I've done them typically every year as a blog post or a podcast, but skip 2020, like many of you probably did as well. But I do have a 2019 version where I kind of did this of like thinking through the year, sharing lessons, talking revenue growth, what worked, what didn't, and I have a blog post of the same kind of topic from years prior to when I was podcasting. But basically what I want to share today is what happened in 2021. So some things that went well, what didn't, and then some lessons I learned this year about business specifically, as well as some personal highlights from the year that also kind of connect to those business lessons. I have 4 specific ones I'm going to be sharing with you. And then I want to tell you a few things on the agenda for me and my business in 2022. So like what I'm planning for and what's coming. So this is going to be a fun episode, a personal one that hopefully you'll get some business insights and lessons from, but also just like fun to kind of catch up and see what 2021 has been like. All right, let's dive in. All right, so to start, I'm going to start with a highlight, and then I'm going to share a first lesson that relates to the highlight. So a first highlight from the year 2021 was finding out I was pregnant and then being pregnant and then obviously having a baby, Colin, who is here now. He was born September 2nd, which we'll talk about that next. But really for me, the pregnancy with Colin was a huge part of 2021. I started the year having just found out I was pregnant about 2 weeks earlier. We found out right before Christmas. So really my pregnancy felt like January through the beginning of September when Colin was born. And being pregnant was obviously a big part of the year for me for that reason, and a huge highlight as well. If you listen to any of the pregnancy episodes I did in the podcast, then you know I really enjoyed being pregnant. I did a first trimester, second trimester, and third trimester recaps, plus some other episodes too. I can link to those in the show notes. But I enjoyed pregnancy, and there were parts of it that weren't ideal, but overall I did really enjoy it, and I felt good most of the time, which I'm really grateful for. So my pregnancy was, again, like basically the beginning of the year, all the way to September 2nd. And then I transitioned to motherhood and my maternity leave. So that's going to be something I want to talk about too for lessons. But my business year was basically like January through the end of August. Like it was not a full year of work. So I transitioned to maternity leave, and then I worked again some for my Black Friday sale. And then I went kind of part-time back to work starting like I would say December really. Right now I'm recording this for you guys December 17th. And I've this week kind of been back working part-time. So my year of work was really just 8 months, January to August. And I actually took a lot of August off because I started my maternity leave early. And then Colin came a week late. So you could say my year was around 7 months of solid focused work. And interesting enough, you guys, I would say I accomplished more in those 7 months than I often do in a 12-month year because I was so dang focused because I had to be. I had a deadline I was working towards. And it wasn't the end of the year. It wasn't just like, oh, whenever I can get it done. But it was Colin's due date / the beginning of my maternity leave, which gave me so much focus. So I would actually say, like, looking back at the year when I think about like maybe a word for the word that defines the business year for me, I think that word would be focus. I was so focused. And I had a lot of precision in the way I was working. And that's how I was able to get so much done so quickly. So that leads me to my first business lesson though from the year. I learned the power of a well-executed, precise plan and the power of working under really sharp deadlines. So that might sound basic, or you might be thinking like, oh, duh, yes, Elizabeth, deadlines work, plans work. Of course they do. But hear me out, because I think there's something in here for you as well in this lesson, and something for me too. Like, I'm going to try to have the same level of focus going into 2022. So basically for me in 2021, up until Colin's due date, I had mapped out exactly what I was focusing on every week of the year. Every week. So each week had a big overarching focus, and some weeks were like a catch-up week or a time off. Like I took a vacation to New York. I guess I was in like May maybe. And I had some other times where it was like, this is a catch-up week, so I'm not really planning anything in case things get behind. But I had planned out the whole year to be 7 months of work where I got so much done. And the way I got so much done was a way I'd never planned my year before. Like, I'm very into goal setting. I do tend to like have a focus. I'll set launch dates in advance and things like that. But I did a much more intense version of planning. And I had a very one-track mind focus on the task at hand. So there was no room for looking at what competitors were doing. There was no room for getting distracted by shiny object syndrome or deciding to do something else randomly just because like, oh, I might feel like doing that right now, even though that was not in the agenda. So I made a plan that had a lot of intention, and I followed the plan. And that plan led me to be able to create Booked Out Designer start to finish, literally start to finish. I launched it as a beta launch in February, and then I created it with my first 40 students there to offer feedback and questions. So like they really helped me create it, which I'll talk about in a moment too. And then I opened the doors to the course again in June, I believe. It might have been July. I'm kind of forgetting right now, but I opened the doors again before I went on my maternity leave. And creating a huge course, I mean, it's over 90 lessons, it's 12 modules, and I launched it twice, plus doing things like group coaching with it and fun bonuses, marketing it all, making the sales page, making the sales video that I used for the beta course, all of it. That felt like enough to be a whole 12 months worth of work. I didn't even mention that I did a webinar to promote it and had to plan and write all of that. But I was so focused on the course, and it was able, because I was so focused, to be created start to finish in 13 weeks. I actually literally looked on the calendar because, again, I had mapped everything out, and I was able to see I started on at the end of February on working on the course because I launched it earlier in February. And then I finished creating it at the beginning of May. So a little more than 2 months. And this happened so fast because I was seriously just focused on that. And the only other real focus I had at that time was creating content for this podcast every week and making sure I was putting out stuff for you guys who are on the podcast. But besides that, I was just like deep in course creation mode, and also in the mode once I had done the beta launch and was creating it alongside the founding members on supporting them. Like we had coaching calls and a lot of like great Facebook group conversations and things like that. So to keep going though through the year, I also created 2 new templates for my shop, really 3 new templates actually. And I launched those. And then I did a big Black Friday sale as usual. And then I put out an episode of this podcast basically every week. I actually had my first skipped week in like forever that was not for a holiday week, just like 2 weeks ago or so from the time I'm recording this. The week before my Birth Story episode aired, I took a week off because I was just like, I need a break. But before then, we'd had an episode every single week this entire year. So mine is working on Black Friday. I was able to take off all of September, most of October, and most of November. And then I was, again, just focusing on Black Friday in kind of like mid-October, and then all of November until it became time for it. And now I've been working part-time in December and basically, was able to take a lot of time off. And it was because it was so well planned. And I love a good plan. But being someone who is pretty creative, I mean, I am a designer, and I also am kind of a more go with the flow person, sometimes a structured person. You can ask Adam, he'll tell you that he's much more like clean and structured and all of that kind of stuff than I am. I have much more of that creative energy, but I can naturally want to be like, go with the flow, work on this a little here, that a little here. Oh, this looks fun. That looks fun. But I did not do that this year. And the focus I had really paid off, and I did enjoy it. If any of that of what I just said sounded like that sounds stringent and not fun, it did not feel that way. Creating Booked Out Designer was seriously like one of the most fun things I've ever done in work. Seriously, I loved it so much making that course. I felt like I was just pouring my brain out. I loved the like communication with the founding members, coming up with everything. And I feel the same way about creating templates. I know when I got to the point in the year where I was like, all right, it's time to design some new templates, I was like, heck yes. I've been, in this like business strategy mode for that 13 weeks making the course. And I was like, okay, now I'm ready to go into like creative mode, listening to some music while I map out the sales page and that sort of thing. So I love getting to do both, but I got it done quickly because I wasn't distracted by other things. So that's a big lesson, right? And I'm doing the same structured planning system for 2022. It's going to look a little different because I do have a baby thrown in there, and life really is so different when you are only responsible for yourself than caring for someone else. I know all of you who are parents are like, amen. I know. I'm glad you're learning that now. But that's very true. It changes things. But I still think from a business perspective, I'm going to be able to like do that same structured planning. I'm just not going to be working as much. Like when I did all that stuff for the 7 months of the year, I was working a lot. I was probably working 30 to 35, sometimes 40 or 45 hours a week. And now my hours are going to be more limited because I am also taking care of Colin, which I want to do, right? I want to build my business around my life, not the other way around. So I'm doing the same structured planning though, but with very different goals. And I'll share some of those things I'm working on at the end of this episode, but it'll be more small things, I think, for this year, and a few giant projects, but like more focused on like little things compared to like what last year was. And I want to say too, let me know if you'd want to learn this planning method from me that I just talked about. I asked on Instagram a few weeks ago, would anyone be interested in like a little training on this? And a lot of you guys were like, yes, please. I would love that. And so that's something I'm really interested in creating. Maybe that's a course that could come out early in the new year, because I really, again, I think this planning system is so valuable and it was a game changer for me. And it's more than I feel like it should go in a podcast episode, but I could create some kind of mini course that teaches it to you. And you could start at any time of year, right? Like I did this basically starting in January through September, but there's no reason why you can't just pick Q2 as the time you're going to start really strategically planning things. So anyway, that was my first lesson, the power of a well-executed, precise plan, the power of sharp deadlines to really get things done in your business. So, okay, that's going to lead me to my second highlight. And then I have my second lesson that relates to the highlight. So the highlight from the year, having Colin enter the world, right? So September 2nd through now and through forever has been defined by me becoming a mom. And what a beautiful, humbling transition that has been. That's the best way to describe it. Like humbling, beautiful, kind of scary, very sanctifying, very wonderful. I've cried both thinking about how much I love Colin and also by like how frustrated I am that I don't know how to like help him when he's crying at times. So it's all the things. And it's funny, I feel like no one really remembers the newborn and postpartum phase once they're out of it, but it can be really hard. There's so many sleepless nights. Breastfeeding can be challenging. It has definitely been for us. Weight gain for Colin has also been a challenge for us in addition to breastfeeding. And I think too, some of it is just like the first kid is such a huge learning curve. I was not someone who like babysat growing up, and I did nanny right before I started my business, but it was mostly with older kids. So it's been a learning curve, like doing the baby thing. And it's blissful and it's scary and it's beautiful. And even as I'm recording this right now, I'm doing this kind of first thing in the morning while I'm working, but we're going through the 4-month sleep regression. Colin started early, but it's also Leap 4 if you follow Wonder Weeks. But I was up 4 or 5 times last night feeding him when we had kind of gotten used to him doing a nice long stretch and then a few wake ups. So I'm really tired. But that's life, right? And he's like so amazing. I feel like I would, never have it any other way. But that's obviously like the biggest highlight from this year. And if you want to hear his birth story, just scroll back. I think like literally one episode, the episode before this one, I share it, and I share specifically 10 ways God showed up in a birth that really did not go according to plan. And I've loved the feedback from you guys on that episode of how it brought you to tears at time, or it strengthened your faith in God. For those of you who are planning for like a natural unmedicated birth, many of you have said it was a good perspective to hear that like not working, but how it can still be okay. So anyway, go back and listen to that one if you haven't. But that highlight of Colin being born leads me to a big business lesson I've really seen play out as I've started back to work as a new mom. And that is the importance of building your business around your life versus building your life around your business. And even as I say that, life is so seasonal. And I've been reminded of that in this new mom phase where I've had to say no to so many things. And my goals list is way longer than the amount of time I have to work in the day. We actually just had our first team meeting back from my maternity leave 2 days ago. And I went into the meeting with okay, these are kind of some of the focuses for 2022. And then as I'm talking to Abby and Stacy, I'm like, oh yeah, we need to do that. We need to do that. Oh my gosh. And you're getting me excited about this goal. And it's I often feel like there's just literally not enough time. There are not enough hours in the day for the things I'm wanting to do, which means I've had to say no to some great opportunities. I've had to really prioritize what gets done next in my business, knowing that hopefully I'll get it all done, but I can't get it all done right now. And that's where kind of lesson one comes back up of really strategically planning stuff and just being one track mind focused of that can't have shiny object syndrome around things right now. And my focus right now, again, going back to life being so seasonal, is on being Colin's mom first and on my marriage and on my relationship with God, and everything else can kind of have to wait a little bit, including my business, which feels kind of hard to say. And that's what I mean when I say building my business around my life versus the other way around. And since Colin's been born and since I've started working again, I've found myself wanting to have less meetings that are unnecessary. Right. I want to be intentional with the times I'm having to schedule things because his schedule is still pretty unpredictable right now. And I've also found myself wanting to create a work environment that allows me to get things done in the free time, like when Colin's napping, which he is right now as I'm recording this. And it's allowed me, or made me, I should say, want to have less deadlines that are set by others, but more deadlines that I'm setting for myself. And that's what I've needed as a new mom with a baby who right now, as I'm recording this, Colin's 15 weeks old for reference. And I've also learned a lot about time management since Colin has been born. Oh my gosh. I'm going to do a whole episode about postpartum stuff, but when I was only taking care of me, it's so much easier to move slower. And now I'm if I'm feeding Colin right now and then I'm playing with him, let's say, just kind of talking through a normal schedule. Maybe I feed him and now we're having playtime, his awake time, and then Adam is going to do a nap for him, put him down for the nap, and then, all that. I might look at my schedule and be okay, I probably have 1 to 2 hours of free time. What do I want to do? Go. And go fast, because it could be 2 hours of free time or it could be 30 minutes of free time. And you never know with babies and naps. And I found myself having to be more efficient in that way. More when I'm feeding him, going ahead and thinking about okay, I'm going to be able to go into my office in 30-ish minutes. What am I going to work on? Because there's no time to just sit around and be what should I do today? I'm going to look at Instagram. I'm going to slowly go through my inbox. Nope, not time for that. Not a good use of time. And so my priorities have shifted some too since becoming a mom. And again, I know each season is so different, like I've been saying, but I found myself in this newborn season wanting to work less and be more present as a mom, which has meant saying no to things. It has definitely meant sometimes just forgetting to post on Instagram and not showing up as much because I'm more focused on being present, being where my feet are. It meant skipping a week on the podcast, actually 2 times in the month of December, because we're also skipping the week of Christmas, which I typically do. But skipping a week randomly, just because that's literally the first time I'd done that since starting the show. But that's because the life stuff right now in front of me has become my focus. And I do think there will be other seasons where my business is getting more attention, and Colin is in school all day and that kind of thing. And trust me, even as I'm saying all this, my business is still getting plenty of attention. But right now, Colin and Adam are my number one. And there's just a lot of learning and growing, and becoming a mom has changed me in a lot of ways. I think it's given me too, which again, I could do a whole episode on this, but a healthier relationship to my business, and a better perspective on productivity and the different things we're taught as women about, all this optimal morning routines and how to be productive, that some of it is just so different when it's not just you're taking care of. So kind of reevaluating okay, what does time management look like? What does productivity look like? What does my morning routine look like when I'm a mom of a baby who's under 6 months old, right? And I actually have some really cool podcast episodes planned in the new year that are going to be exploring some of that through me asking other women who have been doing this longer than me, hey, how are you doing this? So get excited for that. But anyway, that's a lesson there, is just the importance of building your business around your life. And I feel really grateful to be a business owner. I feel grateful that I built my business to where it was, having Colin now, because there are things that can just kind of run on its own a little bit, which I'm really grateful for. And yeah, so anyway, that takes me to my third lesson, and it relates really well to the one I just shared. And that is that you can plan time away, even significant time away, like months, and your business can still grow when your foundations are set up well and when you have a team and structure and systems in place to keep things going and keep things afloat. So I took off completely. I know I already said this, but like to give you the exact dates, I took off completely starting August 11th till around August 22nd. And even then on October 22nd, like the defining moment of me kind of starting back to work there was that I had a meeting with my copywriter, shout out to Emily, to talk about Black Friday. And even then still, it was like, I wasn't working necessarily every day. It was more like probably maybe an hour to 3 hours a day. And then right now, as I'm recording this, I've only been working part-time. And when I say part-time, it truly has been part-time or even less than part-time hours. I actually have not been tracking my hours like I love to do. I love using Toggl. If you've listened to the podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about Toggl, but I love using that to track hours and where I'm spending my time in my business. But I have not been doing that since starting back to work because it's been so sporadic, more like 30 minutes here and there, really. But I worked hard this year, then planned about 2 months completely off, and then 2 more months of part-time work, and my business still grew and things still kept moving. Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravy.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravy.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. So customer support emails kept getting help thanks to my team. Emails kept going out to my email list thanks to like the structures I set up there. I kept posting on Instagram because I did a mix of like some pre-written content and also like literally had so many moments where I'd be nursing Colin and then I would have an Instagram post idea and I'd type it and post it. And the podcast kept going because I prepped a lot of those in advance and then did some during that time where I was saying I was working part-time. And we even had a Black Friday sale. So these 4 months of me not working or working part-time really worked. But it has been more of keeping things running and keeping money coming into the business at a steady pace versus like big growth happening. That's the best way I describe it. It's like we're keeping things going at a steady pace, but not doing any huge leaps because we're more in a maintaining phase right now. But that's great. And I'm more than okay with seasons of business looking that way. Like they've got to. Not everything can be like big growth, big change, big new things mode. And I had never taken this much time off as a business owner, or even like before I started my business. I mean, like even in college, like you don't get that much time off, right? But that is what happened this year. And I'm really grateful. And again, like the reason it worked is because both the kind of business I run, I have like, and guys, go back and listen if you haven't listened to it, but I had an episode I will link to in the show notes, I don't remember the number, where I talked about passive income myths, and what you're really after is scalable income. But I definitely have built a scalable income business at this point, which means that people can keep buying things without me putting in more effort, in the sense of like working one-on-one with someone to do the thing and all of that. And it takes a while to get your business to that point, right? Like you don't start day one there, but that's where my business is right now. In addition to that, I have other people helping. If it was just me doing it all alone, then everything I just said would not have been true. I would have needed to be in the inbox responding to customer requests every single day, multiple times a day. I would, if I didn't have like email marketing set up, that would have looked different. If I wasn't working ahead on the podcast, it would have looked different. If I didn't have someone amazing setting up like the blog post and the creating the graphics for the podcast, all of that. Like there's so many different hands editing the podcast. Shout out to Natalie. I mean, gosh, there's so many different hands in my business, basically what I'm trying to say, which is why what I did worked. And I'm grateful for that. And now I do 100% think you can make a maternity leave work when you're a solopreneur and you don't have a team. It all depends on like what is happening in your business. Like I need a team because of the scalable business type that I've built. Again, this is not in my notes. I'm going off topic here. But if you're a solopreneur, you can totally make a maternity leave work too with just you. It just looks so different. And definitely go back and listen to the episode I recorded where I talked about how I planned a maternity leave for my business. I literally walk you through all the things like exactly. So that will be helpful to you if you're planning a maternity leave or just significant time off, but you can totally do it both ways. And I do plan to do an episode about like how the maternity leave went, but just to sum it up, like it went well. And it leads me to say, though, I want to plan more time off in my business like this. So I haven't sat down yet to plan out 2022. I actually plan to do that next week. But I do think it's possible that it could look like an entire month off. It could look like more time off just more consistently. So not like one giant chunk of time off, but more like a 4-day work week, or setting myself up to where it's like I work part-time hours every day. We also are going to have Adam's schedule coming into play, which he has like his school schedule, and he's starting counseling actual clients. He already had his first client as a counselor this past semester, but now he'll have more in the new year. So we're kind of going to figure out like, okay, this is Adam's schedule and this is when he can take care of Colin. Now we're going to work my schedule around that. And we're also going to have childcare help in addition to that. But kind of figuring out, like maybe it is a 4-day work week. Maybe it's like, Mondays I work a half day. Tuesdays I'm only spending time with Colin as a mom. Wednesdays all day work. Like I don't know what it's going to look like yet. But I do think like planning more time away worked, and I want to do more of that. And then when I am working, be really intentional with my schedule. So I hope all that made sense. I just rambled a ton. None of that was in my notes. But anyway, that was my lesson though. You can plan significant time away for your business and have it still grow, have it still maintain if you have good foundations. Now I want to talk about another highlight from the year that, again, if you're a regular podcast listener, you know this, but starting and growing our real estate business. So we technically started our real estate business at the end of 2020 in like November, December, but the majority of the deals we've done have happened this year. And this has been a huge part of what Adam and I have both worked on in 2021. So even as I was saying, like I had all that precision scheduling, there were a lot of little real estate things like kind of thrown in there that was less scheduled that me and Adam were doing. So we have a residential real estate business. And at the time we're recording this, we have 5 houses, 4 of which are rentals, kind of one in the middle being a rental. It's confusing. I'll explain it right now. And I have an update on this actually that I'm going to explain. We bought 1 rental in 2020, 2 in early 2021. And then this month, literally in December, we closed on another house, but this time it's a house for us to live in, and we're moving. So I'm really excited about that. We're moving in January, and the house kind of found us more than us finding it. And we got it totally not expecting to. So I was just on Realtor, like the app, driving home from an appointment with Colin. Adam was driving. I was in the back seat, so not driving and on my app. But I told Adam, like, look at this house. This house is in a neighborhood we've had our eyes on for a while. We'd even gone on like walks in that neighborhood, kind of scoping it out, and had decided like, okay, this is the neighborhood we'll want to buy. And whenever we do buy again, and not many houses go for sale in it. And so we ended up putting an offer actually before seeing it. Did a really tight deadline on the offer because the house had just gone up as a listing. And so we made the offer noon the next day. We saw it the next morning in person, and then found out a few hours later that they had actually accepted our offer. And with how competitive the market is here right now, we were not expecting to get the house at all. And as people who had already bought 3 rentals previously, we are very used to putting in offers just over and over again and them not getting accepted. But then here we were, and we got this home. And we actually closed on it a few weeks ago at the very beginning of December. And it's funny, it's a rental right now because we are currently renting it back to the previous owners until the new year. And then we move in early January. And that leads me to the 4 rentals thing. So our current home is going to become rental number 4, and it's going to go up for rent in January. We already got the photographs done of it. We've done some like little tiny renovations, more like fixing things that we did not fix for a while we've lived here ourselves. And we're getting it all ready to be listed as a rental. So yeah, we're really excited to keep growing our real estate business though, while also having the benefit of not having to sell this house right now, but instead continuing to let the value increase in it. And I do think it'll make a good rental. So I'm excited about that. So yeah, that's a highlight from the year though. And we're excited to start 2022 settling into our new home. It's going to be really fun. It's a really pretty house. I'll do like an empty house tour or something, but it's bigger than what we have now. So we'll go back to having a guest room again, which I'm excited about. That's been something we've missed with all the family visiting since Colin's been born. And then both Adam and I will each have our own office. And yeah, I'm really, really excited about that. So that is something coming. And then a goal for the year will be to continue to grow the real estate business, which I'll talk about that in a minute. But I just shared that highlight more randomly, but that leads me into a completely unrelated lesson number 4, the last lesson I want to share in this episode that I really learned in 2021. So lesson number 4 was to listen to your audience and make the thing people are asking you for. And again, a basic lesson, but like, do you need to hear it? Because I feel like I needed to hear that this year. That lesson is a really big defining thing for me this year. And again, it's basic. And another way to phrase what I'm saying is that when you make what people want, people will buy it. You just have to listen that it's what people want from you and listen to the way they want to learn it. And make sure you're listening more to what they want than what you want to create. And I would say the 2 things need to be aligned, right? Like you have to want to create it, and you have to have an audience to sell it to that wants to buy it. And for me this year, Booked Out Designer was 100% that. And it was really like me listening to you guys who listen to the podcast, to people on Instagram, to business friends I've made, to plan the course concept in the first place. And then I sold it in a beta launch, which you can hear about on the podcast. I'll link to those episodes. I did 2 episodes talking about that. And then again, I listened to the customers of the course when I made the course. So those founding members of Booked Out Designer really shaped what's in it with the questions they asked on topics that I knew I was going to go over in the course. I would literally ask, okay, what do y'all want to know about this thing? And they asked some questions where I was like, if I had not asked you what you want to know about that, I might not have included that, which made it such a better product overall. I think that's actually some of the power in the course is that it was made by real designers asking questions, and then me also as a real designer kind of answering the questions in a really organized course format. But the point is, I'm glad I listened and I'm glad I made the course. And like I already said earlier, making the course was extremely fulfilling for me. It was definitely a highlight this year. And in this lesson, as I say that, I plan to continue to listen to you all. And I want to make more offers that align with what you want and also what my sweet spots are as an educator, which is really exciting. It's so funny. I mean, just in complete honesty, I have so many ideas for more courses, like more. And when I say more courses, I mean more things I want to teach extensively on outside of this podcast that would apply to people who are not designers. So actually, most of my ideas are not for designers now that I've done Booked Out Designer, but I have tons of ideas. And it's hard to know what to do next. And it's not even like a shiny object syndrome hard. It's more like, I don't know what thing you all need next of my different ideas. So I'm trying to figure that out. And I'll go ahead and talk about it right here, but I have a end of the year survey where I'm hoping you guys can kind of help me figure that out basically. So if you want to take that, it's elizabethmccravy.com/survey. And I will link to that in the show notes. But I would love to hear from you on like what you want more of. But yeah, that's a lesson. Like listen to your audience and make the thing people are asking you for. And for you right now, whether you're a service provider or you do education, whatever it is, like ask yourself, like, are you listening to your audience? Are you making things that people want from you? I waited way too long to make a course. I wish I had done it sooner because it was something people had been asking for way too long. And I think I'm going to feel the same way about the next course I made. If like it's been too long. Well, yeah, that's a great lesson. Okay, so now I've done the lessons. I want to talk quickly through a few small other highlights from the year. And then I want to talk numbers and growth from the year and then tell you guys what's on the agenda for 2022. So that's kind of how we're going to close out this episode. So a few small highlights I want to mention. Filming for the Show It Creators series. That was so fun. That happened early February. And it was during the epic Nashville snowstorm. And we filmed in my house. And shout out to James and to Tyler. They trekked up the mountain that is the street to get to my house in the snowstorm. Like they literally had to park at the bottom of the street with all their equipment and walk up to the house. On like literally just completely snow covered roads. And we did filming for like an entire day and it was so much fun. I will link to that video if you want to see it, if you never saw it, but that was really fun. It's a series show. It did highlighting both their designers and then other people in the community. There's a lot of videos of them now. So that was just, such a huge highlight. I had so much fun doing that. Another highlight was our baby moon trip to New York City. We went like right after everything was really opening up again from COVID, and it was really fun just like exploring New York. Me and Adam had a blast. And then another highlight would be seeing my extended family again at Thanksgiving, which I'm sure so many of you also had that same highlight because for us last year in 2020, we did not get together as a family. And so there were family members like my grandparents who live in a retirement community in North Carolina who I had not seen in 2 years, which we never go that long. So that was a highlight to get to just see all my family all hang out together. And then also for everyone to meet Colin. That was really, really special. So those are some random highlights. Okay. I know there's more highlights than that. I just that's all I could think of as I was outlining this episode. Okay. So now let's talk numbers and growth from the year, and some things that were hard. Okay. So this is interesting. And I think many of you will be able to relate to this, what I'm about to say. But for many of us in the online space, we actually saw a boom in 2020 financially. And maybe that wasn't you, but for many people who are online educators or who have products that are helping people start businesses, you may have seen actually an uptick in your business's financials in 2020. I know my business did. I've heard so many other people talk about this as well. Actually, Emily Hirsch, who has an awesome podcast called Not for Lazy Marketers, she has an episode where she talked about this and it was like, okay, like, yes, I totally see what you're saying. And of course, certain industries got hit hard, like wedding vendors and photographers. Obviously, brick and mortar businesses were not able to go shop in person, but people who are selling things that support starting a business may have seen more growth because a lot of people were starting businesses as a pivot due to what was happening in the world or starting up a side hustle, all of that. So for me, I did see significant financial growth in 2020. But I also saw some financial growth this year in the business. So yay for that. And it's especially when you consider how much time I took off. I was very one-track mind focused this year. I took off a lot of time. And even in those 7 months where I was working full time, I was distracted a lot, right? I was also reading baby books, consuming courses on birth and childcare, and going to doctor's appointments all the time. It wasn't a normal work year. But so the business did grow, but the top line revenue growth has not been huge compared to last year. And again, I think part of it is because last year was a little unique for me from a business perspective. I'm not trying to make excuses. I think that's a piece of it though. But I did see a big uptick from a new product being added, Book.Designer, like we've been talking about. It's really cool. Book.Designer actually brought in over 6 figures in 2021, which was really exciting. It feels so cool it being its first year here, first year of my business, for it already to have become a 6-figure offer. So I'm really proud of that. And that, again, obviously brought in a lot of revenue to the business. But I did see slower growth in some other areas, but still big growth overall, if that makes sense. And then template growth was a little less, but still significant. And then my sweet little Etsy shop has just been trekking along about the same as always. So that's kind of where revenue stuff is. So again, I saw a little bit of growth, but not that much growth, not as much as maybe I would have hoped for when the year started. But I still feel good about it in relation to what all this year has looked like. And I also have not done a full financial analysis yet because I like to wait until I have December under my belt to truly compare entire 12 months to entire 12 months. And right now I'm recording this December 17th. So we don't have all of that yet. But yeah, so, okay, another thing though, so that's a little bit of revenue stuff and something that was hard this year. And I feel very vulnerable sharing this, but I saw a huge lull in social media growth this year, particularly Instagram. When I say social media, Instagram and I have not been friends this year, it seems. And maybe I'll do an episode about this where I share more, but for a while I was seeing really steady growth on Instagram. And when I say steady growth, I mean steady growth in followers and steady growth too in my reach on stories, reach on posts and all of that. But it has seriously lulled. My reach on Instagram, especially even just this past week, has been horrible. And I don't buy fake followers. I don't use bots or do any sketchy stuff. So I've struggled with solving exactly why my reach has gone down so much. That's the main question, is the reach, even more than other things like follower growth. But I'm seriously talking my Instagram stories are being shown to maybe less than 0.5% of my followers. It's so low. And it really stinks. It's been discouraging. It's made me want to be on the app less, which I already kind of want to be on the app less, because again, like I said, in the season right now, I feel so focused on being with Colin when I'm with Colin and then working when I'm working. And sometimes posting on Instagram doesn't feel like work as much. It feels more like it's taking time from personal life stuff, I guess. So that's been hard. Basically, in a season where I'm already feeling like I want to be on there less, to be man, and when I am on there, the reach is really bad. I even saw it be really bad during my Black Friday sale. And again, trying to figure out why, I don't know. I know a lot of people have also seen this same kind of thing. This year, I also completely quit running Facebook ads for a while. I ran ads for the majority of the year, but in the last few months, I completely quit running ads. And that's actually a good thing I'm thinking about right now. I saw a huge dip again when I completely turned off all ads. So I don't know if that has something to do with it, but it's something I want to solve. And I've again, it's been frustrating, but I also am not I don't want to just sit here and sulk and be Instagram hates me, the algorithm hates me. I don't want to do any of that. So I have been looking at okay, so here's my problem. I see what the problem is exactly. And I'm going to experiment with figuring out okay, these different things, these different techniques, different strategies, what can I do to get that reach back up so that you guys are seeing what I'm posting? Because it does stink when you're posting. You're man, no one's even seen this. So anyway, I'm trying different strategies there, but that's been something that's felt like it did not work this year. Again, Instagram I've had some growth on Instagram, but not as much compared to previous years overall. And that has been frustrating. And I know I'm not alone in this. Many of you guys have expressed to me at different times that you kind of hate Instagram. It's love-hate relationship. You get frustrated with posting. You get frustrated with the vulnerability of showing up face to camera. There's so many different things here. But yeah, Instagram has been a frustration for me this year. Okay, and now I want to quickly run through, to close out this episode, a few things that are on the agenda for me in 2022. These are some things that when I was talking about how I'm going to be super mapping out the year, these are some things that are going to be on that mapping out of the year. One big thing is going to be setting up our new home. Like I said, we're moving in January, and I'm actually going to be taking some time off from work in January surrounding that move in order to really focus on setting up our new house, focus on transitioning Colin to a new house. I'm not really sure how that's going to go. I'm not sure how aware he is of where he lives right now at his age. So we'll kind of see what happens there, but that's going to be a big focus early in the year. Another focus will be growing our real estate business. Again, this business that I've talked about on this podcast, the business that is my name, that is Elizabeth McCravy LLC, is my main business and our family's main source of income. But our real estate business is also growing. And it's really fun. And Adam's the one that does the most for it, but I'm also definitely involved. And again, we did 3 episodes back in September talking about all the strategies of starting a real estate business. If you want to listen to that, just scroll back to those. There were 3 in a row. But we're going to be starting 2022 with 1 new rental. That's our current home. So we'll have 4 rentals properties. We'll be renewing leases with current tenants or possibly getting new tenants in. And I want us to do at least 2 more deals in 2022. So we'll see if that happens or not. I'll report back later at the end of the year in 2022. But yeah, so that's something there. Another big project that, oh my gosh, I feel crazy that I'm sharing this, but I'm going to be rebranding my own business, redoing my whole website, and then also reworking some internal systems in the business that really just need to be revisited because it's been a while since we've really looked at the way this is being done. And so I want to revisit it. So I'm planning to rebrand and redesign my own website. I've actually already started on it. That was something a few times during my maternity leave, I got inspired and I was like, I just want to do some design stuff. So I would get out my laptop and kind of start dreaming up new color schemes, new font combinations, and all of that for my brand. And it's a lot of work, but it's fun, y'all. I love designing. So it's I love designing for myself, even though it's really hard. It's hard as a designer to design for yourself because you get picky and you get in your head. And there's also the problem of you literally have no limits because you're the only one that has to know how to work with the complicated, cool thing you come up with. So it's going to probably take me a while. But again, I'm going to literally map this out of this is something I'm working on this year. Here's how much time it's going to take me. And I'm going to try not to get picky and try not to get all in my head. But redoing my website and redoing some of those internal systems is something I'm really pumped for. Another thing I'm pumped for is reopening Booked Out Designer again. That will be something happening in January or February. So really excited about that. And then I want to create some new offers. Like I said, I have a lot of ideas for courses, for things relating to our template shop, some things to watch out for though. One thing that we're going to be offering in the new year is in-house VIP days for template customization. That is something that's coming that I'm really excited about. Making new templates will also be something coming in the new year. Definitely a course or a mastermind or both. I'm still working again on all that of what I want to do and whatnot. And then I also think we'll be growing the team here. We've talked already about what will the new roles we need look like, but I know one of them will be a junior designer role. So if that's you, if you're oh, I'd love to be a junior designer in your team, watch for a job posting because we'll have that coming in the new year. And I'm really excited about that, of defining that role, figuring out how this new person will fit into everything we're already doing. I think that's going to be really fun. And another thing I'm looking forward to in the new year, I would say I kind of went more internal in the year 2021 and definitely in 2020. But in 2021 specifically, I was on less podcasts. I did not really do any event speaking, and there were less events happening anyway, but the ones that were happening, I said no to speaking at when I got asked, and less no to attending as well. But in the new year, I'm thinking I will want to do a bit more of that. So that's just a little bit. There's more things than what I just shared, but that's some of the stuff that I'll be working on as the new year starts. I'm really excited about. And as we close, so that's really it. I've kind of summed it all up. But as we close, I have 2 things for you. 2 things really to ask. First thing, I already mentioned my annual survey. I really want to hear from you of what do you want more of on this podcast? Is there interviews you want to hear? Is there solo episode topics you want me to answer? And then what courses do you want from me? What do you want to learn? As you listened through this episode, when I was talking about that, what came to mind is something you want to learn. When it comes to the M-Shop templates, what new templates would you like to see? What kind of design styles? What industries? All of that. I have created a survey where you can literally tell me all the things, and the more details, the better. I have loved reading it. At the time of recording this, I had sent out the survey yesterday afternoon, and I've started talking about it more. Sent it to email list, sent it out on Instagram. So far, we have 51 responses, and I have seriously loved reading all of them. I have not read all of them yet. I've read about 40 of them so far, but it's been a fun thing for me reading it. So please go take that. Again, I'd love to hear from you. I will link to it in the show notes, but it's elizabethmccravy.com/survey. and I will be giving 2 people $25 Amazon gift cards for taking it. We'll be choosing at random out of the people who have submitted the survey. Okay, and then second thing, if you've been listening to this show for some time now and have not left a review yet, please do. Please do now, like as we're closing out this episode. It's funny, this show is close to or past now, I can't remember the exact number, but it's close to or past 200,000 downloads. And if you are one of those downloads, I want to hear from you in a review. I know podcasters always are asking for reviews, but it really does help more people find the show because Apple Podcasts will show it to more people. It shows that it's relevant and it's really easy to do. So you can simply rate it with stars, or you can also write something too. And I would love to read whatever you want to write if you do write an actual review. But please do that if you haven't. It means a lot to me and it really helps the show grow. So those are the 2 things: annual survey, leave a review for this podcast. And now as I close out, I just want to say thank you for being here. I know many of you listening have listened to like every episode that's aired this year. And that's incredible. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a template customer or a member of Book.Designer, or even someone who just follows along on Instagram or listens to this podcast. I seriously appreciate all of you. And I hope you enjoyed hearing this like 2021 year in review. And cheers to an amazing new year for all of us. So I'll be back next week with another episode. We'll talk to you then. All right. Bye. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode all the way until the end. I appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to invite you to check out my website template shop too. Over on ElizabethMccravy.com, you'll find show it website templates that are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you book more clients and customers. Maybe your current website is really boring. Maybe it's a challenge to update, and maybe even it's that thing that you really feel like is just completely holding your business back. Your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers, and that's exactly what my MShop templates do. So these are pre-made show it website templates where you can plug and play your content into it with ease and then get started with a website that's designed to actually help you make more money. These templates are designed to be SEO friendly on the back end, and they're not just pretty, but they are very strategic and with all the strategies I teach on this podcast. And best of all, they're easy for you to set up all by yourself. So shop them at ElizabethMccravy.com/shop and come join the MShop family of hundreds of happy customers. And as an added perk, you can use the code BBPodcast at checkout to get 10% off any template as a thank you for being a part of the podcast family. So that's BB Podcast for 10% off any template over at ElizabethMccravy.com. And if you love this podcast, don't forget that you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts so that you never miss an episode, and leave a rating and review for the show wherever you're listening. Share it with a friend, share it on Instagram or Facebook. That's a great way to support the podcast and get the word out. All right, I'll be back next week with another new episode.